This land is our life. Inuit have always lived here. All of this land has been known and named and used by our people for thousands of years. This land nourishes and supports the Inuit. In our veins flows the blood of the animals. The animals feed us, and we respect the animals and care for them. In all the time we've lived here, Inuit have never killed more animals than they needed for food and clothing. Inuit cannot be separated from the land. We are one. This is the way it has always been. They say that the first Europeans to visit our country were trying to find a route to another country, far away in the east. They did not stay here very long. More Europeans came, following the whale. Just as petroleum oil is important today, the whales were the oil wells 100 years ago. We did not try to chase away the whalers. Inuit have always shared. But in a very short time, these hunters from far away killed almost all the whales. They didn't know how to live here. The whalers left. The Inuit remained. The world is changing more rapidly now than ever before. Instead of caring for the land, often it has been destroyed. In large cities, the air is no longer good to breathe. Chemicals used to grow crops are poisoning the water. Factories spew more chemicals into the air and rivers. Pollution falls back to Earth as acid rain, which kills trees and has already poisoned thousands of lakes in Canada. No fish can live in them. Not even the coastal areas, the nurseries of the oceans, have been spared. In Europe and the United States, seals and whales wash up dead on the beaches. Around the world, because of the destruction of forests, marshes, and waterways, one animal species is disappearing each day. One species each hour may be lost by the end of this century, just 10 years from now. In all, 1 million species may be lost during our lifetime. Solving these problems is the greatest challenge of our time. A new approach that allows people from around the world to work together to protect the land and the oceans is called the World Conservation Strategy. This strategy links conservation and economic development. Industrial development is important, but it must not destroy the land and the animals. Inuit have always understood this. We have much to teach people who have lived in cities so long that they have forgotten how to care for the land. The North is also changing. New ways have often brought new problems. We are more vulnerable to outside forces than before. In the South, because their food comes from stores, some people think it's wrong to kill wild animals. They do not understand how their campaigns to ban the sale of seal pelts have made life very difficult for the Inuit. Mining and oil exploration bring some money and jobs to the North, but they can also harm the animals. Ships can spill oil and pollute the water. Ships may break up the ice along the shore, disrupting seals and making it difficult for hunters to reach them. Pollution and even dangerous radiation from far away can collect in the Arctic, poisoning our air and water. How can Inuit control the changes which are occurring to be sure they are good for us? To answer these questions, the ICC and other Inuit organizations are working with scientists, world conservation organizations, and with the Canadian government to develop a conservation strategy for the circumpolar region, called the Inuit Regional Conservation Strategy. It is based on the Inuit way of solving problems and protecting the land. It is a way to ensure that Inuit can continue to choose how we will live for generations to come. We know that industrial development is important, but our life will always depend on the land and the animals. We also know that problems can be solved only by talking and sharing with other people. All the people must be involved. An important part of this circumpolar plan is the Arctic Marine Conservation Strategy. The government has now accepted that Inuit have special rights when it comes to using and protecting important Arctic resources. The purpose of this plan is to protect the future health and well-being of the Arctic marine environment, so that Inuit can continue to enjoy the wealth which their land has always provided. The Arctic Marine Conservation Strategy covers a large territory, all of Canada's marine waters north of 60, including Hudson's and James Bays.
Hudson, James Bay,
To make the plan work, we must understand its goals. There are 6 main parts to the plan. Shared management is a key component of successful conservation. Many different groups of people now live and work in the Arctic. All of the people who use the Arctic Ocean should decide together how resources will be used. Inuit must play a central role in making decisions because we will be most affected by changes in the Arctic. We must participate in decisions about how to protect and use the fish, whales, seals, and other animals, as well as how oil and gas and other resources of the North should be used. Integrated planning is required because the Arctic Ocean is used for many different purposes. The land and waters are used by our fishermen and hunters. The ocean is also used for tourism, shipping, and for oil, gas, and mineral exploration. Sometimes there are problems when several of these activities occur in the same area. Mining and increased ship traffic must be controlled if they are not to disrupt the animals our hunters depend upon. Harmful effects of industrial projects should be considered early in the planning stages before construction begins. Projects must be monitored during construction and after completion to gain more knowledge to guide the planning of future projects. Planners must consult with the people already living in the area. We need science because in order to plan successfully, we must know our environment and understand it. Inuit have an impressive store of knowledge about the land and the animals that inhabit it. Scientists also have a contribution to make. We also need knowledge from outside scientists about the impact which mineral and gas explorations and other new developments may have on the land. Scientists and Inuit must work together to develop the kind of knowledge which will be needed to protect our land. No strategy for conservation can be successful without sufficient public knowledge about its goals and principles. People in every part of Canada must learn more about the importance of the Arctic. We must educate the public about conservation principles and about the way in which Inuit respect animals and protect the land. In the South, there must be more education of both adults and children. In the North, our elders' knowledge should be made available to everyone making decisions which will affect the environment. Inuit will need training in many fields so that they can participate fully in many of the projects which will affect the future development of the Arctic. Long-term economic development is possible only if the quality of the marine environment is preserved. Pollution from industrial projects and the transport of contaminants like PCBs through Arctic waters must be controlled and reduced wherever possible. Certain important marine areas may require special protection. Several of our communities are concerned about protecting areas most important to marine mammals. If bowhead, beluga, narwhal, and walrus populations are to increase, we must ensure that critical areas for feeding, breeding, and raising their young are maintained. The intention in establishing protected areas, however, is not to further separate Inuit from their lands. Protected sites are a way to make sure that these important resources will always be there for us and our children. International cooperation is required today to assure conservation and long-term economic development. This is one reason why the participation of the various governments concerned is essential. Many threats to our oceans come from outside the Arctic. Air and water pollution don't recognize national borders or stop for customs checks. Many animals also travel long distances in their annual migrations. International cooperation is also needed to assure the management of animals which we share with people now living under different national jurisdictions.
And in the sky, it's not a
New
thunderhead,
problems are emerging.
it's a cloud of smoke.
The burning of large quantities of oil and other fuels is warming the planet. The melting of the ice caps could raise sea levels and flood many of the world's cities. A rapid change in climate would have drastic effects on plants and animals. All this, of course, would have an important impact on the life of people in the Arctic.
Final result is disaster. Great forests become scientists You're just blocking progress. And besides, Mourinho has decided
For all these reasons, international discussions and shared solutions involving Inuit are needed to protect the land and its resources. The Arctic Marine Conservation Strategy is working for the future of Canada's Northern Ocean. This complements efforts by the Inuit Circumpolar Conference to ensure that development and conservation needs of the Inuit of the whole circumpolar region, including Canada, Alaska, Greenland, and the Soviet Union, through a plan called the Inuit Regional Conservation Strategy.
Aku gitu mi amolo Russia nunangan ni teman na pang na gutaw na suarto iman na tayo yok Inuit sa budisi man na suar ng pang na tigi si mayangat Inuit
The Inuit Regional Conservation Strategy is part of a growing world effort to protect resources upon which people depend. It is the first modern conservation plan to be developed by Aboriginal people.
Amulutan na sibuli pangut tiaslu ni akalunangong itunit akisutaw si mayong.
The federal government's Arctic Marine Conservation Strategy is an important Canadian component of the Circumpolar Plan. Together, they provide a coherent plan to preserve our Arctic environment. And that, after all, is what we must do to ensure the survival of the Inuit culture and the welfare of all Inuit. But, to make it work, we must all participate. People from different countries are often divided. We speak different languages, and often we don't understand each other. But when astronauts went to the moon, they looked back and saw that the world is one small planet. We all live here together, and we must work together to protect it.
Teman-teman anu juang min ibu piju tigid lugu katu jiluta sa budisi manasuang ng piju tigid lugu iknaya katigi kaya kapugon. Teman ukiyotak tumik.
The Arctic Marine Conservation Strategy is a project which will require all the wisdom of the old ways and all the skills which modern science can provide. This is the job we have set ourselves. It is a heritage which we can pass on to our children. We must protect the land to ensure that a better life for our children and for people everywhere.
Nunat tinik sa budisi manasuara ang nertuguit inu sa katya komamut, kitong abud inu sa katya komut, amaluki kulima nanitunak inu sa katya komut.